Welcome back to another episode of Thermal Thugs. This is episode 5. We are back in Hammond, Louisiana for episode 5 in the studio. We have a familiar face. He was a host, and now he's a guest, Chris Wisecarver. Welcome into the show.
I am, yeah.
So we've had a few requests recently on the podcast because we reach out to our listeners and say, hey, what do you want to hear? And they want to know a little bit about you, the founder, Fusion Thermal, Wave Thermal, kind of your background. So some people know that you've been in the industry for a while, but what we want to talk about today is just kind of how it all started, get everybody familiar with the brand. Even though we've been around for almost half a decade, there's still some people out there that need to know and want to know. So tell us a little bit about Chris Wisecarver.
I'm surprised anybody wants to know anything about that.
Hey.
It's really not all that exciting. So I'll expedite through that part of it.
Sure.
But, you know, as I've mentioned to many people in the past, I'm one of these guys that fell down the optics rabbit hole some 25 years ago and just used a great pair of binoculars on hunt, and it changed my life dramatically and set me on a new course. And ultimately, being in the optics business full time is a second career for me, post-Katrina career. And it's been a fun ride. It's a great industry. Optics, whether it's day optics or nighttime optics, is a fascinating science. And I just feel really fortunate to be in this industry and be able to do what we do. And you know, when you can keep your passion up for as long as I've done this,
Right,
and really kind of feel like your passion is accelerating, that's a lot to be thankful for.
Yeah.
And you know, we're neck deep in this thermal project. We've been at it for a while now, and you know, it just keeps getting better all the time, and we keep learning more and connecting with our customers more, and it's just exciting.
Yeah, I think
Exciting
that's
stuff.
where I saw you shine and what gravitated me towards you 5 years ago, kind of from my standpoint as a reseller. You know, you were more in tune with listening to what people wanted and the customer, you being a hunter yourself. And I think that's an important aspect in any company, especially manufacturing optics. And that really is what got me interested in the brand. And you kind of take the ball and hand it off and let people run with it, and then kind of take their ideas and go from there. How has that kind of worked with Fusion so far?
It's worked great. And you know, what's interesting is I talk to a lot of people that are customers and some that are kind of brand ambassadors that we work with that have really the same passion that I do. And they enjoy getting into the weeds on things and always striving to try and push the industry forward to see, you know, if you can pay attention a little more to what people are actually looking for and desiring in the products that they buy. And so when I get a chance to visit with people and do that, we end up at a much better place from a product standpoint.
Right.
And it really kind of drives everything that we do here, you know, starting from the customer up.
Right.
And paying attention to what they want in a product.
Yeah. So the Fusion line was kind of the first line that European brand, and now we have Wave, which is an Asian brand. Tell us a little bit about the two and the difference, and kind of why you shifted gears.
I had the really good fortune to meet a brilliant physicist in Europe that had a really unique spin on the technology of thermal devices, and really has a proprietary technology in sensor optimization that I don't know if anybody else in the world does. And I've learned a lot from this guy, just kind of listening, keeping my mouth shut and listening to him talk about what is important in a thermal design and how do you perfect it, and how you make sure that you get the most out of everything that you put into it. And so Fusion Thermal the brand is a unique product in the market. It's really like no other. It's beyond the price of some people They simply can't afford it. It's European built, and it's built with super premium high-end components, ruggedized, and so it's we have a kind of like cult-like following for the people that really like the fusion thermal concept.
Mm-hmm.
They can afford it. And the other thing is that the fusion thermal products are just absolutely, without question, the simplest devices on the market to learn how to use and to operate in the field.
Right.
And so if that's your thing, okay, and there's a lot of guys that have money but they don't have any time and don't want to have to pull out a manual and take a PhD course on how to learn how to use a thermal before they pick it up and use it, Fusion's a great option for them.
Right. I know that Fusion, the way I kind of got intertwined with the brand was when I was guiding real heavily, and we wanted a unit that the people that we were guiding that's never seen the unit before, they pulled up to hunt with us, easy operation, because you get too complex and you're out there. I mean, it could ruin a hunt really quick for someone that doesn't have the experience behind a thermal. So, 5 years ago when we started running Fusion and guiding with them, and then, going back to the construction of the unit, I mean, we've dropped these things off the top of the high rack, mud, rain, water, everything.
Right.
These things take a beating. And I can say without a doubt that any of our units that we've guided with, we haven't even had a button fall off or a return or anything, knock on wood. But so I get how it is. And it's kind of a boutique brand is kind of the way I describe it. It's kind of a little bit more of a higher end, user friendly, and it's done really well. But again, shifting gears, and I can't help but to look at this thing right here, and we're going to circle back to that later. But how is that the overall technology and products from Wave? How did that transfer, and why did you come out with this Wave brand?
Well, I think you have to realize that a lot of the new emergent technology in thermal devices, whether it's good or bad, is coming out of Asia. It just is. The Chinese have gotten into this market in a big way globally, invested a lot in infrastructure and R&D, and they're, by and large, especially in the consumer market, the technology curve setter. They just are. And of course, they have a lot of manufacturing capabilities and efficiencies. So thermal prices have come down in the last few years. This is a really good thing for the consumer. It's a good thing for the night hunting industry. It's allowed an opportunity for a lot of people to get into it that otherwise wouldn't have, a lot of young people. So the affordability is a real good thing. And we recognized that this was a trend in the market. We didn't want to chase the bottom. That really wasn't our idea. We had learned so much in the market with Fusion Thermal about user interface and making things simple to use for people and try and take the complexity out of it. And, the Chinese have great capabilities in certain areas, but they're terrible in other areas.
Yeah.
So you've got to, sometimes have them undo what they do.
Right. No. Yeah. And I've seen that in the past, and boy, we kind of knocked it out of the park with getting feedback from people in the field here. So yeah. So talk about the advancement of these sensors. Like for me personally, it's kind of like happened overnight in the last, call it 12 months, maybe. Just the advancement of these sensors and the quality of the image is just blown me away.
Since, when you look at the underlying technology in these devices, you look at really four aspects of it: the lens system, the sensor, the user interface, and the display. And certainly there's been dramatic advances in the sensor technology. And it's not just that. If you go back 5 years or so ago, there was just a handful of people globally making these sensors. So you really had limited options on who you could go for. You've got to be in the semiconductor business to do it. It's a massive infrastructure thing. But now we're seeing a lot of second tier manufacturers get into the production of sensors. So that's the competitive pressure there is push prices down, and they've increased the performance aspect of it. You know, we are going to run into some theoretical limitations here.
Right.
You know, when you look at the fact that these devices are seeing into the infrared, you know, it's not like night vision that is amplifying visual light. They're looking in the infrared spectrum. And so this bandwidth of wavelength is generally between, you know, 7.5 nanometers and 14 nanometers. And when you translate that to micron, you understand that, okay, we've gone from, you know, 30 micron devices to 17 micron devices down to 12. Well, if you've got part of the bandwidth in the infrared, the waves are actually a larger measurement than the pixel in the device. So part of the wavelengths that are coming in are not being effectively measured. So where does the technology go? Can you push it to 10? Well, now, if that's the case, you're only effectively measuring from 7 to 10 instead of 7 to 12.
Yeah.
And so we'll need to see some technology leaps, and perhaps AI will provide it, that will allow us to better interpret the images and create the missing link part of that.
Talk about AI and environmentals. Like, that's kind of a thing that's come out recently. How does that change the sensor of the environmentals that you're at, where it's rain, high humidity? How does that algorithm help the image?
Well, one of the things that we've seen just recently, and this technology is in the ATRIS, is you can incorporate deep learning aspects to it. So, for instance, you know, one of the nuisances of thermal devices is the fact that the sensor's got to recalibrate occasionally, and that causes the image screen to freeze and causes some problems. And a lot of people don't like the automatic nuke. They want to be able to manually nuke.
Personally, I'm a manual guy.
Right. Well, the best nuke, you know, to borrow kind of a line from Elon Musk, the best nuke would be no nuke.
Right.
And with the deep learning possibilities that are available to us, you can have the sensor remembering all of the different temperature variation combinations that require the nuke to occur and memorize and make those adjustments automatically. So essentially, it's learning your environmentals as you're using it and providing a better experience because of it.
Cool.
And we're also seeing, you know, as you saw in the introduction of our Horizon handheld, AI is being used in an advanced way to do pixel count based on anticipated, you know, target distances. So it's a way to provide a non-laser based range estimator that works actually surprisingly really good.
Shocked how well it works. It was, So using that, I'm been guiding with the Horizon, and those distances are pretty darn accurate, which
it is. And as you know, it'll display the whole field.
The field,
Yeah.
So if you're looking at a group of pigs that even deeper than some of the other ones, it's going to shoot all different distances. Pretty cool.
There's no telling how that's going to impact the industry in the future. And the only thing I'll tell you, it will continue to impact it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be pretty exciting stuff.
So with that being said, what do you feel personally, and this is a question that I personally want to know, what do you feel is the most important part or aspect of a thermal build?
Without question, in my opinion, the most important part of a thermal build is the objective lens system. I mentioned to you that I had a chance to kind of learn a lot from a physicist in Europe about it, and he is what they call an energy-first designer.
Mm-hmm.
So he sat me down and he had a thermal device in front of me, and he's like, "Now listen to me, boy." You know, he's like, "It doesn't matter how good everything else is in this device. If you skimp on the lens system, you can never get the device to full potential."
Right.
It all starts with bringing copious amounts of infrared energy undistorted, straight path into the face of the sensor. And this is really kind of an unfortunate thing, is that there's no way for the consumer to shop lens quality. It's not a spec that you see.
Right.
Now you see an F number, but that's just an indication of how much energy the lens is capable of bringing in.
Right.
And we've kind of topped out on that as well from a technology standpoint, but it doesn't speak to the quality of the lens. And when you look at lens material, there's really a dividing line. You either have germanium lenses or you have something else.
Right.
And germanium is the standard. It unfortunately is one of those rare earth minerals that everybody's been squabbling about lately.
Mm-hmm.
It's used extensively in, defense articles. It's not something you can just go dig up. It's a trace mineral within, silver or zinc, extremely rare, extremely difficult.
Where's most of that germanium found, stored?
Well, China sits on the world's largest reserve. Yeah, and Russia has a bunch. That's not obviously happening. The U.S. has a lot, but the DoD sucks up most of that.
Right.
And then you've got a lot of great quality germanium that comes out of Europe. There's other places in the world, but that's really the 5 key places.
Yeah. So no shortage in different countries. So
yeah. Right.
So getting to the new unit, this thing, let's talk about it a little bit, because I just can't hold my horses and wait and talk about it. So we have been waiting on this unit for a little bit of while, and good reason. There was, some things that wanted to be perfected from the manufacturer. And tell us, just looking at it first glance, I think people are going to want to know the focus knob. Why the focus knob on top?
Look, I'll answer this question in this way: is I think if you're going to build a great product, you have to have some design foundation that you just stick with. And to me, how the user interacts with the scope and the field is what's important. I simply can't stand the collar focus design, right? If you twist, if you're forced to engage your shoulder, your arm, and your wrist to focus the thing, it's not comfortable, it's fatiguing, and it moves the gun. It just moves it a lot. And so we don't use collar focus on anything that we build.
Yep.
It's all top knob focus. It's ambidextrous, so we don't leave our left-handed shooters, out of the game. Also, having it properly sized means that the guys that are hunting coyotes in 20 below degree weather can operate the thing with a gloved hand on.
Yeah. I feel for me that the top knob focus, I can dial in just a more accurate, precise, clear view versus the collared. I overturn, I don't turn enough. Yeah.
Some are really tight that come from the factory, that none of them, are the same. And if you get a tight one, it's hell, it moves the gun, incredibly. And
I like a lower scope, especially on my bolt guns. And sometimes there's just not enough room between my fingers.
Get a thumb pinch. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So
it's cheaper to build it that way,
mm-hmm.
but it's an inferior design. It's just that simple.
So kind of a new battery model that in the industry that really no one's really seen or familiar with. And that's the 26650.
Right.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that battery, why, we incorporated that size in this new unit, and also what does that do with the 18650s?
So as you know, power supply is a big thing with me, right? Just one of these foundational design principles. I think not using, the doctors take an oath, right? Do no harm.
Right.
An oath that we have is don't screw the customer.
Yeah.
And if you have a proprietary battery driving your thermal device, it's uncalled for. They're expensive. They're obsolete in a few years. There's no reason for it. So having commercially available batteries that are going to be around for decades is where we decide to build all of our products. The 26650 is an interesting choice for us. First off, the other design principle that we ultimately led us to this was you should never, ever put a battery inside of the device that is non-accessible by the consumer. Okay. Right. First off, batteries can and do fail often. We buy batteries by the thousands, and a lot of those are defective on arrival. A lot of them never reach full potential. They don't have the cycle life. They don't store the rated amperage. And if you're one of the unlucky ones that get one of these batteries in your device, then you got to send it in to have it serviced. And that's just crazy.
Yeah.
The other part of it is recharging a battery inside your device is a really bad idea. You know, these things, when they charge, they generate a lot of heat. And you don't want to put, the thermal is essentially a computer.
Right.
You don't want to put a heater inside of your computer on a regular basis. So charging a battery inside the device doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So we don't do it ever.
Yep.
But it's done by a lot of people because they want to extend their runtime. So in a tube scope, if you're going to go down to a single battery, you could choose 18650, but you'd have a fairly limited runtime. So if you choose the 26650, then you essentially have one of the footprints of the 18650 is identical, right? So 18 millimeters in diameter, 65 millimeters in length, 26 millimeters in diameter, 65 millimeters in length. So actually you can run our device on both.
Right.
And we include a sleeve. So if you've got, you know, a whole bunch of 18650s, you can run it. I've even run mine when I didn't have the sleeve. I wrapped a paper towel around it and put it inside the battery compartment, and it worked perfect.
So me personally, using this unit out in the field, I figured all the 18650s I've collected over the last few years, I figured that would be my battery that I would go to in this scope, but I've yet to stick an 18650 in the sleeve and been, you know, using this. And, you know, a lot of our ambassadors and some of the customers that have already gotten their hands on this have contacted me and said, hey, where do I buy more of these? And, you know, I really hadn't looked online until probably a few weeks ago, and there's several people offering these batteries.
You can get them on Amazon. You can get them from us. You can get them from camera houses.
Yeah.
They run, you know, $10 a piece.
Is there anything they should look for as far as the milliamps, protected, non-protected, brands? Because this is a question that I'm fielding pretty much on a daily basis because people are wanting,
right.
You know, they're like me. They're just freaks about having extra batteries, especially if you're out in the field in this cold weather.
Well, we include two, of course, and it only takes one to run the device. So you've got a backup, and you can get them from us. You can get them on Amazon. We've tested several Amazon brands. They don't exactly have the capacity that's advertised.
Yeah.
There was one on there that said 8,000 milliamps, but I mean, no way.
Yeah.
Right?
I know Keep Power has a couple, you know, it's Xtar and Orbtronic is another popular one. So there are other brands out there.
There are. I think you'll find, you know, you're not going to do any harm if you put an off-brand one in. And the truth is, you know, Samsung and Panasonic are making most of these batteries globally anyway. So the underlying technology and most of these batteries is pretty decent.
So any, I guess, reason why the battery versus
two
parallel
two important reasons. You know, the devices, the menu system, the digital zoom, it's all driven by the encoder on the top here.
Yep.
And we really felt it was important to have it here because we have a lot of left-handed shooters out there. So having the encoder operating system on the top was a primary reason. Coming in with the battery from, you know, the side, left and right, meant that you got the battery out of the force of recoil. So instead of, you know, the linear force of the recoil pushing that battery and running an opportunity for spring fatigue or loss of recoil because of battery contact is essentially out the window.
Yeah. Circling back about the internal batteries, I had a unit years ago that had an internal battery tube style scope. The battery didn't necessarily inside go bad, just over time with recoil and hunting with that, shooting thousands of rounds, it just lost contact internally with the power supply. And ultimately, that had to be sent in to replace. So
yeah. And who knows what caused that? Probably heat.
Yeah.
And in combination with the recoil. Yeah. It's just a really bad idea. I've been in the optics world a long time. One of my favorite optics companies is Aimpoint. Not because they're the only ones who know how to make a great red dot, but because they spend a lot of effort developing great electrical systems. You can put a CR 2032 in a Aimpoint micro, and the thing will run 7 years without ever turning it off. Right.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So there is a way to have a great electrical system in your device and manage power effectively. You don't have to cheat the system by putting an extra internal battery in it.
Right.
And then exposing yourself to all of the problems that brings. It's just a bad idea, and we don't do it.
So do you want to talk about or have an idea on battery life from this battery? What are some of the reports back and testing, and how many hours has it been lasting?
So about 10 hours.
Okay.
Which has got, for a laser 640 device is way above average. We're waiting on the guys up in the frozen tundra of the north to come back with their wintertime reports. But I would think that we'll probably see 5 or 6 hours in really adverse conditions.
So this unit sitting here, let's talk about the mount itself and how the mount is included with the unit, this 30 millimeter one-piece mount. Give us a little background of the mount, why it looks the way it looks, and constructed, height, QD, who we commissioned for the mount. Let's talk about that a little bit.
So this is one of these little things that I think we pay attention to that some of our competitors don't. So if you look at most of our mainstream competitors in their tube scopes, their better offerings, they're including a free ADM mount, right? But what they're including is an ADM day optic mount. Now, those mounts were designed with a forward-facing cantilever that solved a very specific problem in day optics, especially on AR platforms. So since you crawl up on an AR more than you would a traditional bolt gun, and you have a long tube scope, if you have a 3.5-inch eye relief on your day optic, you have to mount it very much forward on the gun, to the point to where you would, if you were using rings, you'd probably have to use one of the rings on the handguard rail and then the other one on the upper receiver rail. Well, in thermals, you don't have 3 3/4-inch eye reliefs. You don't. It's a different eye relief profile completely. So the cantilever is actually opposite of what it should be. So we went to ADM and said, look, we know what everybody else is doing, but it's not providing an ideal solution for ARs and bolt guns. And so we started working with their team and developed what we call the optimized thermal mount, the OTM30. And essentially it has a reverse cantilever on it, and it provides the right eye relief for the operator.
Yep. So some of the other features on this scope that I want to point out before we move on, and these are little things just in the field as a hunter, as someone that's guided in the past, getting feedback from all of our users across the U.S. The one thing that and it's a small thing that stands out to me, is the standalone laser rangefinder button that initiates the rangefinder. And, we've got this scope in the hands of our dealers and our ambassadors, and we've, got the end consumer. That is one of the first things that I'm hearing reports back that, wow, like, this is amazing that you have a standalone laser rangefinder button that's raised. It's right there, easy to access. Tell us a little bit about that feature and why you incorporated the standalone button.
Well, if you've got a laser, it's the primary feature of the weapon system, right? I mean, it's deserving of its own button. And nothing, I mean, you're using this in the dark.
Right.
And so being able to find what you're looking for in the dark by feel is important. And a dedicated laser button just seemed absolutely, intuitive, the way to go. And it's, we wanted to break it out from the button control panel, and we did it. And it's a really great compliment to the system. And I think that based on the feedback that we've gotten, it's the way it should have been all along.
Yeah. So, and even the record button, looking at it here, it's got a raised button for the record. That way you can differentiate it from, the other two buttons there.
Right. Right.
So yeah, just small things that really make this unit just over the top. So going to the range finding, it is incorporated in the lens.
Yeah.
You don't have it up top or some bulky side or Picatini'd off on the other side of the scope. But tell us why, and if you want to grab the unit and kind of...
Well, we got one.
Yeah, here we go.
One right here. So this is, where we're insetting the laser into the device. This is one of the new technology advancements that's happened here, in the last 12, 18 months.
Yep.
And it's interesting. And I will tell you, the one thing that I've learned in the optics world is that nothing comes without trade-offs, right? Now, in a tube scope design where you just don't have a lot of good real estate to put a laser system, especially if you want to preserve the top knob focus, where do you put it? And so you've got all this bulkiness traditionally on the sides, or people put these big housings on the top. So an inlet laser system is a perfect solution to a tube scope. The question is, where do you put it? You can't put it on the bottom because now you're into the thermal radiation that's coming off the barrel, and in particular the suppressor, if you're running one. You could put it on the top, but that's not ideal either because now you're increasing the angle, based above your bore. So having it as close to the center would be perfect. So if you could actually put it in the middle of the lens in the center, it'd be ideal. The best place is to put it on the side of the lens. Now, you got another problem that occurs is that these laser modules take up space away from the lens. And if it's not done well, you can dramatically affect how much energy is coming into the face of the sensor. So what was determined here was that if you split the emitter and the receiver, essentially straddle the center of the optical system, you keep it perfectly in line with the device, but you also minimize any interference that occurs almost to a point where it's completely negligible.
Right.
So we call this the split beam laser, and it's really a big improvement in this new technology already. And our laser system in this device works fantastic. It's just unbelievable how fast it is and how accurate it is.
Yeah, speed is really what, especially in scanning mode, I'm just blown away with how fast the reading is. So last thing I want to talk about this scope is the actual screen, the display.
Yeah.
This is new for us in both Fusion and Waveline. The size, the pixels, man, I'm blown away by it. The shape of it. So, we've seen this leap in the market. People go to the larger screen. The 1024 screen is a really small device, right? So it's 0.39 inches in size. Tiny. Yeah.
To make it look well in your eye, you've got to significantly magnify it up in the diopter lens. The larger 2560 displays just provide a much more immersive opportunity. Now, the size of the display is actually square. And so when you start looking at a lot of competitive alternatives on the market, you see these round displays and you're like, well, how is that occurring? And this is one of the places where marketing decisions outweigh, functional decisions. And to me, that's never a good thing either. What essentially they're doing is they're putting in a bracket that essentially changes the shape of their display. They're cutting off usable real estate. And I don't see the advantage there. Okay. Now,
and that's mainly to make the shape of it. They're using kind of like a wafer.
to make it more traditional looking. And I get it. It's pretty cool looking, right? But is it worth the trade-off? And so if you're paying the money to go up to this higher, this bigger screen, larger footprint, have all the advantages of enhanced eye relief, eye box, and just a more immersive experience, why cut it off? Now, you do have to have some room for the status bars, right? So we ended up what we call the View Max display. And it provides the full opportunity of the 2560 without, artificially cutting it off with a circular bracket. And when you look through this thing, it's like amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, you just, first off, the ATRIS has got a 9-degree field of view at 3.5x magnification.
How is that possible?
Yeah, it's a difficult thing to pull off. Our friends at Envision were the first ones to pull it off and did a great job with it. And there's ways to do it.
Yeah.
And it's a complex formula, but it's possible and it's there. And the question is, how do you utilize this new display to maximize the experience that offers? And we came up with a design I think is just absolutely killer, and everybody that looks through it is just like blown away.
Right. So probably everyone that has not seen this scope before is wondering the eyepiece. It ships with 2 eyepieces. We don't have the other eyepiece out here, but it's your standard cup. And then we have this screw-in over-molded eyepiece.
So both of our, it's on there pretty tight. Both of our devices come with both a short eyepiece and a long eyepiece.
Yep.
And, first off, we got a big diopter ring here, which I love, so it makes it easy to adjust. And then there's a lot of threading here, so you're not going to lose it. You can put a little thread locker on there. If you decide that you like one over the other, you can put a drop of thread locker on there. It's not going to hurt anything. But we got a lot of feedback that people don't like the big, eye boots. And so
to the point to where some of them were cutting them or throwing them away.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's how we experimented with this. We cut off a bigger one, tried it out.
And then if you do like the eye boot, and we had, people that were losing them in the field because they came off so easy, even the magnetic ones. So this one is a threaded screw in.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not going to lose it. And like I said, you can put a little thread locker on it if you want it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, anything else we need to know about this unit? I think we've covered all. Some of the things that are reporting in the field that people are blown away by is having the ability to change the color of the actual display. And this has been kind of the thing in the past with some of the Envision and Trijicon scopes in the past where, one display might be a true monochrome black and white. You might get another unit that's has a blue tint, which personally was my favorite, easy on the eye. And then you might have this amber tint to it. And so it was kind of like this scramble game, or what are you shipping me? What color display? And so tell us a little bit about how the ability to change a display and I didn't really look at that as kind of a big deal, but since it's gotten in the hands of several users, like they're raving about it.
Right.
So
not to be confused with color palettes, right? So you can change the sensor to show white hot or black hot or red hot, etc. But there's also an opportunity to change the underlying hue of the display. The default is gray. It's a bluish gray, which is much easier on the eyes. But you can go into the menu and change it to blue or to violet. And yeah, it depends, everybody's eye is different, and how much eye fatigue you experience is different. So you can go in and change the hue of the display. And for some people, it's just a complete revolution in the way that they use their product.
Yep. So as far as future with Wave, as far as like, how can we one up this scope? What's the next step? Is it possible?
Well, we're going to run with this one for a while.
Yeah.
It's just, forget all of the functionality, all of the performance stuff, but it just looks great.
Yeah.
It looks like a traditional scope. We've managed to get all the cumbersome aspects out of the design. So people they're really appreciating the fact that now they've got a thermal scope that looks like a traditional scope.
Yep.
For the first time.
And it's great on both AR platform and bolt gun. I run both, and just the overall balance of it, I like, but I do like, we call it the compact design, our Tempest. It has its place in the market, and people, there are the people that just do not want to accept the fact that, a tube style scope is a thermal. So we have both designs in the Tempest.
Right.
And even the smaller design in our Tempest 335, it's even more compact with 35 millimeter lens. Tell us about the 384 resolution. Is it being phased out, or does it still have its place in the market? I feel like it has its place in the market because of the price point. Like we're getting down below $2,000 for a scope that has, all the capabilities as these 640s.
Right.
What is your thought on the 384?
So to answer that question, I want to bounce back to the whole subject of sensor.
Okay.
Right? Okay. Now, I mentioned to you that you have to be in the semiconductor business to build these things. Well, when you're in the semiconductor business, the only way you make any money is by throughput. You gotta produce a lot of product.
Mm-hmm.
One of our engineers was at a sensor manufacturer, and they were producing sensors. Get this, a new sensor every 0.6 of a second.
Wow.
They were producing so many sensors, it's unbelievable. Now, these things are used in scopes, they're used in cameras, they're used in all kinds of different applications. But they mass produce these things. When you mass produce something at that scale and that speed, especially something that's electronic, you're going to have output that does not meet specification. Okay. The sensitivity of the manufacturing is so critical in these things. So any change in temperature in the manufacturing room, any vibration that comes into the room, any impurities in the water that's used in the manufacturing process on these films, all of that, any slight variation, and you have sensors that don't meet spec. Well, when you're running them thousands per minute, you just don't throw those sensors away when they don't meet spec, right? There's a hungry market for sensors that are slightly out of spec or dramatically out of spec. There's people that want to buy them because they're building price point devices. So is it possible that you have a 384 that outperforms a 640? Absolutely. We see it all the time. Our ATRIS 335, which was introduced last year, outperforms many 640s on the market. So I think a well-done 384, the thing about a 384 is you only need about a 35 millimeter lens to provide it all the energy it needs. So you get the cost savings associated with the smaller lens and the smaller sensor. So the price can be, kept down, and the performance, if you're buying good quality sensors, can be there as well. I hope the 384 stays around. We'll have to see what the market is. We're seeing 640 device is sold on Amazon for $1,400. Well, I can tell you it's junk.
Yeah.
You know, you're buying a product that has, one is not a germanium lens. It's a sulfur-based lens that does not provide the image resolution or the energy that you really need. And you're buying substandard sensors and probably substandard displays. Now, I get it. Everybody's got a budget, and if that fits what you want to do and it's good enough for your purpose, great. But I'm just, you know, of the opinion that people ought to know that there's no free rides in this stuff, right? You're going to get what you pay for.
Exactly.
It's a hyper-competitive market, and excess profits are not going to exist. So we've got people that are going to get products associated with the price level that they pay.
Yeah, I'm constantly, when I post a 384 video from a customer or they post it or one of our ambassadors, I'm constantly answering messages. There's no way this is 640, right?
Yep.
I'm like, no, it's, you know, the ATRIS 335. And they're like, wow. So I feel it still has its place. We have a lot of people out there that's good enough for them. You know, they're not.
No, absolutely. And if it's, you know, a backup scope or a buddy scope,
yep.
You know, it's why go the full boat?
Yep.
You know, and if you just getting into this thing and you don't want to, you know, spend top shelf money for a top shelf product, then buy a good 384.
Yeah. So the next thing that I'm wondering, there's this perfect middle, this 640 with all the bells and whistles, this perfect middle. And we have, you know, the 384 on the sub 2000 in, and some other companies, not us yet, have been dabbling with this 1280, you know, upwards of $8,000.
Yep.
Is there do you think there's still a place in the market for a $8,500 thermal after seeing, you know, what a sub $5,000 640 15 millikelvin? I mean, what is your thought on that?
1280 is tough. You know, when that they first started hitting our market a couple of years back, our physicist in Europe looked at it. They sent him a sample of it, and you know, he said, "Well, are you seriously considering this?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, let's take a look at it." And so he did his calculations and came back and said, "Well, to deliver enough energy into the face of a 1280, to bring the 1280 to its full potential,
right,
you'd need a 120 millimeter lens." And I'm like, you know, I mean, first off, germanium's outrageously expensive.
Right. It's a lot of real estate.
Yeah. And, you know, you just don't find 120 millimeter lenses. And if you could, it'd be just crazy expensive on top of a crazy expensive sensor. So the minimum he felt needed would be somewhere around 80. Now, it's interesting that a lot have come in around 75 in the market, and you still get a dramatic improvement in image quality with a 75 millimeter lens, you know, because the 1280 is just that much more resolution.
Right.
But if you really don't want to make too many sacrifices, then you've got to pair it with the right kind of lens or an exceptionally good lens. So I think the technology is going to develop. You know, one of the things you could do would be to push the pixel pitch down, go from a 12 micron to a 10 micron. And that would reduce the footprint of the sensor, and you could get away with a smaller lens and a little more magnification perhaps. But, you know, then you run into the whole problem of not being able to interpret the full wavelength of the infrared spectrum.
Yeah.
So 1280 is tough. It is. Eventually, I'm sure that we'll offer one on the market, but we're going to take our time and make sure it's done right. And I just don't think an $8,500 price point or, you know, $7,500 price point is just reasonable in today's market. The 640s are just too good. I mean, you can buy two 640s for that.
Exactly.
Right. So why would you go there unless you just wanted the bragging rights and, you know,
and that's another thing.
And you're willing to carry it around. Right.
I've seen in the industry develop is, whereas, you know, back in the day, 10, 15 years ago, it was a lot just to have one thermal, but now you're having people buy 2, 3, whether it be for their kid whether it be for a buddy or just a backup, whatever.
Yeah.
So most of our, clients are buying 2 and 3 units.
Well, part of the fun of it, I've done a lot of bow hunting in my past, and, it seemed like every year I was buying a new bow, right? And so I was passionate about the sport and wanted to keep up with the technology. So we get a lot of people that are trading up on their thermals every year, that they use the other one for a second one, or they sell it to a buddy. And that's part of why we did the transferable warranty. A 5-year warranty is pretty much standard in the industry now. Ours is transferable. So if you want to trade up on your scope on an annual basis and sell your product to a buddy, the warranty goes with the scope.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the industry standard nowadays. And we kind of pioneered and adopted that with the Fusion, and people followed suit. But yeah, you have a lot of people, especially coming from a brick and mortar. They have people that walk in there and it's like a car dealership. They want to trade in their thermal that they bought last year or the year before. So that transferable warranty means everything. So we're wrapping up the end of the year here. Of course, we have our SHOT Show. We're going to be in Vegas this year, correct?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you know exactly where our booth is going to be located this year?
Oh man, you should have given me a heads up if you were going to ask me that question. I don't.
But it's not the same spot as last year.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. We're in the
as soon as we find
Caesars
out,
Hall, but on the main floor.
Caesars Hall main floor. We'll put it on our social media, and we want everybody to come stop by and say hello and look at some of the stuff that we're offering.
Yeah, and if you're in Vegas and you haven't seen the new ATRIS yet, you need to come by and take a look at it. It's pretty wild.
For the most part, most of our dealers that had all these pre-orders, we have those filled. And this new unit is accessible in stock at most of our dealers, if not all of them right now. So it's available, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And, we've got a network of great quality dealers out there.
Absolutely.
We've got some great internet dealers that are trusted advisors as well. So there's plenty of places to shop for these things. And let me make a comment about shopping for thermals. Okay, because I think this is important, and I hope I don't make anybody mad when I say this, but I really say it with the best of intentions to help people make a great decision. If you're going to shop for a thermal, don't do it by reading specifications. As we just finished talking about a minute ago, you can buy a 384 that outperforms a 640, easy. And so if you get trapped into looking at sensor size or pixel pitch or refresh rate, you're just going to end up making a mistake. You'll end up buying a product that you shouldn't. And the other thing too is, if you got a buddy that bought kind of an entry-level scope and he's really happy with it, understand that, he's trying to confirm his purchase, right? So if you've got the same budget as him, great, go get the same scope. But understand there's no free rides, and there's whether it's us or our competition out there, there's lots of great product on the market. There really is. I think that we do things that differently and better. We pay attention to details better, but there's lots of great options out there. But be careful of the buddy that says, I got this scope at, $1,400 and it's good as a $6,500 scope.
Right.
It's just not the case, right? And good for him if he's happy with it, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be happy with it.
Yep. I think that as we wrap the show up, if there's someone that is on the edge of buying a Fusion or Wave thermal that necessarily hasn't heard us as a household name just yet, what would you tell them? What's your message to them or your commitment if they purchase one of your units?
I would tell you that you couldn't find a device on the market that was better thought out than ours.
Right.
Really tailored to the needs of the American shooter. We don't sell globally, right? And so when you sell globally to people that speak multiple languages, you have to make design compromises to try and, fit the needs of everybody. And the Europeans have completely different hunting habits than Americans. So one, having a product that is Americanized, one that is tailored towards the needs and the requirements and the demands of the American shooter is the first thing.
Yep.
And that we've really tried to bring a product to the market with a user interface that is so pleasant to dialogue with in the field that it's going to be a better option for you than many competitive alternatives out there.
Touching base on warranty, at the end of the day, these are all electronics, and there's going to be some failure. Tell us a little bit briefly how here in Hammond you're going to service your service center here in Hammond. It's going to be sent here in the U.S. if there's any issues. Touch base real quick on customer service and the service center here in Hammond, Louisiana.
Well, as you know, we've got a full team here in Hammond, including a full service center. So if there's a device that comes in and it needs to be repaired, we're going to fix it. And, we'll, depending on what it is, the turnaround time will be, a little different perhaps. If we can't fix it, generally we replace it for the consumer.
Yep.
But we understand that in today's world with social media and just doing the right thing, you've got to take care of the customer. So I don't know of anybody that's unhappy with the service that we're providing here. Repairs are a fact of life. We get surprisingly few of them. As you said, the fusion thermal devices are built like tanks, and the more consumer-oriented stuff is just built well.
Yep. Any given time I walk into the little lab in there where we service, and there's maybe half a dozen, if that, any given time, units in there. So that should tell you something right there. Okay, well, man, let's wrap this episode up. We got big plans for 2026. Next episode is going to be remote up in North Texas. We
special
have special guest, one of our senior ambassadors, ex-Dallas Cowboy NFL linebacker, avid hunter, wolf hunter, dropping some hints. We're not going to name a name. Thank you for tuning in to episode 5 of Thermal Thugs. Chris, want to thank you for being here and letting me put you through the ringer. But stay tuned for episode 6. We got more to come. Thank you.